I'd like to begin by welcoming Nathan Gipple. He works for Solutions of Urban Agriculture. Please tell us a little bit about yourself, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start by talking a little bit about Solutions. It's a 501c3 that's been around since 1991. It was the brainchild of Eiji Kawamura, who's former Agri-Secretary for State of California. He's a third generation Japanese farmer, and in the annual harvest, he was just seeing an incredible amount of produce going to waste, and he wanted to do something about that. That started as a gleaning effort, and then proceeded into growing food on purpose to help the community through the local food banks. And that's where Solutions for Urban Agriculture was born. Recently, we've had the opportunity to farm multiple sites, one at Westminster High School at the Giving Farm, a 30-acre site at the South Coast Research Extension Center called Harvest Solutions Farm, the Farm and Food Lab at the Orange County Great Park, where I'm responsible as the creative director out there. Mm-hmm. So I have the responsibility and also honor of working with an amazing board of individuals in trying to come up with creative solutions to solve these problems that we are facing in an urban environment with food security, food availability, and thinking outside the box and being a do tank rather than just thinking of solutions, actually getting them done.
And you're doing all of this in an urban setting. And I was down there a couple days ago, and I got to see your site that you all have set up there, and it's really beautifully set up. The way you have so many different fruits and vegetables and herbs and medicinal plants and worm growing areas that you have all in there, and they all sort of coalesce with one another. And while I was down there, I remember seeing the tree, right? Would you call it a brother or a sister from the tree that you all had gotten from Ground Zero site at 9/11? And you all brought the tree over here, and actually from a little branch, you're saying like 6 to 12 inches, you ended up growing a tree.
Yeah.
Right.
So the survivor tree at Ground Zero was the last living thing taken out of the site. It had been knocked over, exposed roots, charred. Everyone thought it was a goner, but it turned out to be the last living thing taken out of Ground Zero. It rejuvenated, and come springtime started putting out growth. It was nursed back to health by the Port Authority. We were able to obtain those small pieces of that tree and create genetically identical trees that are now growing up here in Southern California that are identical to that historically significant plant.
So I think it was so interesting that right down the way that you had a rose garden, and that was dedicated to Rosie the Riveter. And Rosie the Riveter, and among other women, they took a stand during that time at the home front to be able to take care of the factories and keep everything going while everyone was gone. And now around that same time, that's when Victory Gardens started really making their mark in our nation. And so my question would be with the monument that you have to 9/11 and for Rosie the Riveter, how that ties into an individual being able to be self-sufficient in their community. Like, is there a spirit that ties all of them together?
I think you'll find a common underlying theme to all of those would be resiliency. That underlying strength, that desire to do what can be done, and that is the case. Rosie the Riveter was representative of all those women who couldn't go into combat, but were able to do something. They were able to fill a needed role, and so they did what they could. The survivor tree, against all odds, started to regrow and became a symbol of hope and resiliency in an uncertain time, and continues to share that with everybody that comes through in all the different locations where a piece of that tree is present.
We talked a little bit about self-sufficiency. Why should an average person invest their time to own their own garden?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and I think it's got a couple of different points to it. One, if you look at the food delivery system, it's extremely tenuous. You basically have a service line that's dependent on things going from the farmer to your table, and there's so many steps along the way that if any of those get broken, especially with the federal controls over food safety, the food can't be sold or the food is not available. And when you look at what people are spending on water, on fertilizer, on maintenance companies coming out to take care of their landscapes, it makes sense that you would get more of a return out of your investment than simply a landscape that goes to the landfill. And so edible food, growing your own teas, growing your own medicine in a beautiful environment and something that's aesthetically pleasing is a no-brainer to me. And it's not as difficult as people make it out to be.
One of the newer things that have been going on is people have been talking about hydroponics and aquaponics, right? How has that changed the average person being able to grow their own fruits and vegetables and herbs?
So at a scale of an individual in an urban environment, I would say that it's been more of a hobby approach, although some folks can grow all of the vegetables that they need out of their garage using a hydroponic or an aquaponic system. So the resiliency of a system like that is definitely something to be considered, especially when you're not looking at an incredible investment of time for the amount of produce that you're getting. I think the exciting thing in an urban environment when we look at hydroponics and aquaponics is the ability to grow vertically within a structure. So from a larger scale, I think that's applicable. And then from a backyard scale, the idea that you can grow your own vegetables and protein in a symbiotic relationship is something that's exciting. And it's as old as the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, the island hopping campaigns of World War II, where they had no room to grow vegetables, but they could do aquaponics. It's stepped through history, and now we have technology helping us out. It's an exciting journey. You don't want to get discouraged. Gardens want to grow. Soil wants to grow. It does that naturally if we just get out of the way. Mm-hmm. And by seeing the way that God has created this incredibly detailed system and understanding little bits and pieces of how it works, we can get plugged into that and we can kind of steer it in a fun direction, something that's inspiring, where you're continuing to discover new things within it and benefiting at multiple levels, not only with the food that you're growing, but also the beneficial insects that you're bringing to your garden, to your community, the beautiful flowers, just so many different things that stack on top of each other as far as benefits.